something has finally happened, and that is the AfD, the Alternative for Germany, has announced that it's going to carry out remigration, which is great. So mass deportations of immigrants, and that's both legal and illegal, which it's about time, because we've been banging this drum for a very long time. It's nice to see actual political parties with the possibility of coming into power adopting these policies, because that's what is necessary to fix the problem. Unfortunately for the people being deported, but fortunately for the people who live in Germany. So obviously the AfD, it's not entirely certain whether they're going to assume power in the future, because lots of the other political parties are trying to ban them. They're trying to make out that they're evil and they're Austrian painter enthusiasts, when actually it can be further from the truth. And in fact, they're quite a liberal party, if anything. They're just, conservative liberals. And actually, I would argue that on a lot of things, they don't go far enough. But hey, that's just me. But I'm going to read from this Daily Mail article, because not only does it have the information about what they're going to do, but it's interesting to see how it's being framed by a supposedly right-wing publication. And spoiler alert, I don't approve. So it's titled Germany's AfD vows total closure of border for 100 days and remigration that would see mass deportations of immigrants if the party is successful in forthcoming election. So, this sounds great to me. And that's not necessarily misrepresenting it. But then it starts with Germany's hard right AfD party, which hard right, it's a silly term anyway, because at this point no one's falling for that. And also making out these parties to be more extreme than they really are. It's sort of similar to how people are making out Donald Trump to be more extreme than he really is and was. All it does is sell the people who would have voted for them on them more, which some people argue is the purpose of this. I personally don't think that political elites and the likes would radicalise people deliberately against themselves. It seems like a policy that's prone to backfiring, but that's just me. But anyway, it's vowed a total closure of the border for 100 days and signalled it would enact mass deportations if it wins power in the upcoming election. And of course, it has done quite well as a party in some of the regional elections, which I think it's won at least 2 of them. And there was a third one that was, there was some tomfoolery going on. But Alice Weidel, I'm probably mispronouncing that, sorry, the co-leader of Alternative for Germany, announced the party's election manifesto endorsing a policy of remigration for migrants regardless of their citizenship status. Yes, that's the important thing, that it's not enough to deport the illegals, because the illegals normally are a small percentage of the problem. Most of the problem are the legals. The standard of people who have been allowed to enter Europe is just too low. We've already got people that are, taking out of the system and causing too much crime in our native populations. Why would we import more people like that? It's already a problem that goes too far, even amongst our native populations. So it's madness to me, but here we are. It's going to be reversed, and I think one positive thing about this is it's made people realise that you have to guard against these sorts of things, and also it's given the West, it's sort of injected a new in-group preference for ourselves, because following World War II, we're basically lied to and told that it's because people were patriotic that they did all that stuff, or it was because people supported strong leaders or supported putting the natives first. And it's just nonsense. It's a way of targeting the right and trying to suggest that if you are patriotic and you put your people first, that it inevitably results in a horrific world war or just needless violence, which I don't agree with, of course. And in fact, there are many existing countries that fly in the face of this. But maybe people will specify, oh, it's only European, they're uniquely evil, which of course is an evil thing in and of itself, because Europeans, as in ethnic Europeans in both Europe and North America, have done more for the world than pretty much any other people in terms of advancing the frontiers of the human race, I suppose I could say. But anyway, it carries on to say, Vows was approved as the party's candidate for Chancellor on Saturday, just weeks away from the looming February 23 election. I hate that date format, by the way. 23rd of February. It's the 23rd day of February, not February 23. 23 what? Sorry, you're not watching me to complain about the date. It carries on to say, she told an audience at the party's Congress on Saturday that the first 100 days of a government containing the AfD would see the total closing of Germany's borders and turning back anyone travelling without documents, as well as large-scale repatriations. Sounds good. Why not close the borders for longer than 100 days? I mean, why not do it for your entire time in office? I mean, a complete moratorium on any migration would be pretty good. It would also send a clear message that the people of Germany don't want you here, don't come. And even if, another party took control and opened the borders back up, maybe it would be reduced. But hopefully it wouldn't come to that. I imagine that once people see the benefits of mass remigration, they're not necessarily going to go, you know what, we need some more people back again for some reason, even though it caused problems last time. And this is quoting her, "I say to you quite honestly, if this must be called remigration, then let it be called remigration," she added, acknowledging the controversy around the term, which critics have compared to ethnic cleansing. Now, this is very slimy from the Daily Mail, because, of course, who has called mass remigration ethnic cleansing? They're not killing them, they're just sending them to their home country. And if sending people back to the country they are originally from is so bad, if that country is so terrible that it's tantamount to killing them, then why would someone from that culture be a benefit to a European country? It's one of those arguments where it's sort of laughable. It's just like, it's against their human rights to be sent home and to live a normal life in their home country. Well, isn't that just saying that their country is so backwards and bad that, is of no benefit to the host nation to host them in the first place? You can turn it around on itself. But anyway, polling second in opinion polls at around 20%, which seems to be the case, actually, to be fair to the Daily Mail. The AfD has grown in stature over the last 11 years, but stands little chance of forming a government, as working with the hard right remains a major taboo in German politics because of its National Socialist past. I've got to say that way around, because YouTube doesn't like the other version, the actual version, and it will flag the video because, we've got to be children and we've got to censor words because YouTube has to be PC for whatever reason. So yes, obviously the Daily Mail here is trying to suggest that the liberal AfD is similar to the Nazis, and that the concern between the AfD rising and the rise of the National Socialists in the 1930s are comparable, when in fact, if anyone's done any reading of history, the National Socialists hated liberals like the AfD. They're not comparable. Just because you support putting your native population first doesn't mean you're an Austrian painter enthusiast, because of course the North Koreans do that, don't they? And so, it'd be difficult to say that communists are the same as mid-century Germans. You could also look at lots of other countries as well. There are lots of countries that fly under the radar, that put their own people first. A plethora of different political systems, ideologies, you name it, it has existed in that country before. So it carries on to say, Vadel, who lives in Switzerland, slimy, saying she doesn't even live in Germany. was officially crowned as the AfD's Chancellor candidate at an upbeat party conference this weekend. I imagine it'd be upbeat because they're doing well. And the AfD has long been polling in second place behind the Conservatives, but one survey on Saturday showed it had increased its vote share to 22%, a score that would be its highest ever result at the national level. And despite Germany's main party long-standing agreement to work together to keep the AfD out of government, Weidel has managed to make a big mark on the election campaign since she was first nominated as the party's pick for Chancellor in December. And of course, it's worth mentioning as well that people will vote for the Conservative Party and then realise they're not going to do anything about it, and that's going to go over to the AfD in a similar manner to how people voted Conservative in Britain and then went over to Reform, and now Reform doing arguably better than the Conservatives. And I think that a similar thing's potentially going to happen in Germany. They're just a bit behind the curve, so to speak. Not that Britain is ahead of anything, politically speaking. We're not doing great. So it carries on to say, last week she was hosted by Elon Musk, the world's richest man and key Donald Trump ally, for a wide-ranging live stream on his ex social media platform. And it goes on and on about complaining about Elon Musk and his support. And interesting thing here, Weidel, a gay woman who has 2 sons with her Sri Lankan partner, who is also a woman, of course, so she is a lesbian, has decried allegations of fascism. I think part of the reason, it also mentions her awkward personal history as the granddaughter of Hitler-appointed Nazi judge. I mean, if you live in Germany, someone's going to be involved in the Nazi party in some way, because it's not like you just spring up out of the ground as a native German, do you? You have forebears. But yeah, there have been people on the actual right, not this hard right that the Daily Mail talks about, that are concerned about a lady such as her representing the right, because of course this is a break from more traditional conservative values, to say the least. And also, I suppose the AfD is doing a similar thing to what the Conservatives thought they were doing by appointing Kemi Badenoch, in having the diversity tick boxes checked. They've got a lesbian woman, and the Conservatives have a black woman. They think, oh, well, this is going to shield us from criticism as being extremists, but no, they'll try and get it to stick anyway, so you may as well have someone who doesn't alienate your core base as much, personally. And it does mention Bjorn Höcke, I think you pronounce it, I don't know. Sorry, Germans, if you're listening. I don't mean to get your language wrong. I'm afraid I learnt more French in school than I did German, which as an Englishman hurts me, but alas. It says that he was also welcomed by the audiences, and he's a sort of favourite amongst a lot of the right and a lot of activists outside of Germany as well. And they're bringing up that he was condemned for calling the Holocaust Memorial in Berlin a monument of shame, calling for a re-evaluation of Germany's relationship with its painful past. I mean, it's not an unreasonable thing to say, that it is a monument that it exists to make the German people ashamed of things they personally didn't take a part in. I mean, should there be a memorial in Germany? Well, it makes more sense to be perhaps somewhere like that, or Poland, than it might do, say, in Britain, because there was talk of there being one in Parliament Square for whatever reason, despite the fact we didn't participate in any way. So I don't know why we would need that, but there we go. And they also bring up, he has also been accused of making references to speeches by Hitler and chief mid-century German propagandist Joseph Goebbels. This is just a straight-up smear piece from the Daily Mail, and that's what I wanted to focus on, as well as the mass remigration thing, because of course that's great, but there's not as much to talk about that, because I think if you're watching this, you're probably already sold on the fact that immigration is causing lots of problems. But I wanted to look at the fact that these supposed right-wing newspapers are presenting them as radicals, and in fact they're not radicals at all. You only need to look at their manifesto. It's very much in the paradigm of liberalism. if you were to look at their party manifesto in the 1990s, you would even put them on the left, potentially. So to call them hard right and to say, you know, they're basically mid-century Germans, they're Austrian painter enthusiasts, is a deliberate smear. I think they know what they're doing at the Daily Mail here. And I think that there's going to be a lot of this. And I think it serves two purposes in politics, one intentional, one perhaps not, but just as detrimental. The first is obviously to make people who might be slightly to the left of the AfD hesitant to support them and damage their electoral chances. That much is pretty obvious. That's why lots of media outlets smear right-wing parties, alleged right-wing parties, as being more radical than they really are. And the second is to trick people who actually want a radical party into thinking the AfD are more extreme than they really are. And in fact, there is much more space for the AfD to go to the right. They're not exactly nearly as radical as they're being made out to be. And in fact, you read their manifesto, as I've done, and you'll see a list of lots of pretty liberal, sort of almost classically liberal, libertarian-leaning things. They're not necessarily this ultra-nationalist or, dare I say, you know, Austrian painter or Mussolini enthusiast. There's no element of that in their manifesto, and it's just trying to throw stuff at a wall and see what sticks. And I personally don't think that people are exposing this enough, because it's one thing, we're all aware that the media smears the right. That's pretty well understood by most people. But what people aren't noticing is that by the media making out these right-wing parties as being far more extreme and dangerous, as they're saying, or, you know, extremist than they really are, they're also fooling people who want stronger solutions to these sorts of problems of immigration. And I think you do need a pretty robust and strong solution to the problem of mass migration, because it is so extensive and it is so pervasive in its influence on society. And this is something to bear in mind, and I think something to keep an eye out for in the future.